We ask that you subscribe first, share the video, and comment. We want to hear your views about what we are going to discuss today. We thank you for subscribing to this. Please hit the subscription button right now. This is a second video on Pierre Poilievre remarks, those despicable remarks which he called the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that the leadership is despicable. This is the second video on those remarks. That in this video we are asking a simple question: is Pierre a hypocrite? Why didn't he call for the arrest of Joseph Harper if his objective is solely to enforce the law and see justice to be done? We are going to go through the crimes of Stephen Harper. Why did Pierre Poilievre not call for the arrest of Joseph Harper? We honor the Mike Duffy. Joseph Harper, his former boss, the PMO's office, with the blessing, with the approval of Joseph Harper, was involved in a secret payment to Senator Mike Duffy, hush money, in order to cover up the residents' fraudulent claims by then the Senator Mike Duffy. And also the Senator report brought on allegation of cover-up. Joseph Harper, the former prime minister, the former boss of Pierre Poilievre, was involved in a hush money scandal in a case involving Mike Duffy, which instructed his then chief of staff, Nigel Wright, to cut a check of $90,000 to Mike Duffy so as to make this issue of fraudulent claims by Mike Duffy go away. Joseph Harper was involved in a hush money scandal. Pierre Poilievre should have called for his arrest. The second case, Stephen Harper was involved in the contempt of court. There was this watchdog on the budget, requested budget information from Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper refused. He went to court, and the court ruled in their favor and instructed Stephen Harper to turn over the budget information. Stephen Harper refused to comply with the court order. That's a criminal offense. Hey, Pierre, you cannot selectively enforce the law because he's Joseph Harper, is another conservative, is my former boss, so I cannot enforce the law. This is contempt of court. As I said in my other video, if the court instructs you that your license has been suspended, you are not driving. If you drive, you'll be arrested, charged, and sentenced. Stephen Harper did not comply with the court order. Why didn't you call for his arrest, Mr. Poilievre? Why didn't you call for an arrest of a man who cannot comply with the court? In Western civilization, the courts act as the final arbitration between any civil dispute, between any dispute in society, and the orders, they have to be complied with. Stephen Harper did not. Stephen Harper falsified the report on CEDA by Bev order on Kairos. He altered the report, falsified it. Why didn't you call for his arrest, Mr. Poilievre? Why didn't you call for Stephen Harper's arrest on this issue? Altered the report on Mike Duffy. He issued a deductive version of the report, which had a lot of incriminating evidence. Mr. Poilievre, call for the arrest of Stephen Harper right now. I don't know, probably some of the cases might have a statutory limitation which has expired, but after he had left the office, why didn't you call for his arrest? On the project cost of F-35, Stephen Harper publicly issued that the cost was $15 billion instead of $25 billion. Where is the other $10 billion, Stephen Harper? And Poilievre, we have $10 billion unaccounted for. We want to hear you call for the arrest of Joseph Harper. Mr. Poilievre, Stephen Harper, your former boss, used $750 million charged to the taxpayer on political advertising. There was mail blast targeting the liberals. That's a crime. If you are to be advertising for your political party, you have to use the funds of your political party donated by your party donors. Stephen Harper used $750 million on partisan political advertising. And he had a mailed blast charged the taxpayers, which was targeting the liberals. Now, Mr. Poilievre, can we hear you call for his arrest? Please, Mr. Poilievre, I'm asking you that if you are a man of integrity, if you are a man who believes in the rule of the law, I want to hear you calling for arrest of Stephen Harper. We didn't hear you then. You should go out publicly right now and say Stephen Harper should have been charged with crime A, B, C, D. Stephen Harper secretly recorded political opponents. There was this man, Malo Reynolds, a liberal candidate in Alberta. He was being secretly recorded. This is Watergate scandal of Richard Nixon back June 17 of 1972. So Stephen Harper had a Watergate scandal here in Canada. And we don't hear you because in the Watergate scandal, although Richard Nixon himself resigned, but he had some of his close aides criminal in the Watergate scandal, secretly recording political opponents. That's a crime. Even in sports, in one of the sports, there was someone who was secretly recording the practice of another team. He faced criminal charges and was fined, though was not necessarily sent to prison. We had Watergate scandal here under Stephen Harper here in Canada as recent as in the 2000s. There was election spending violation. Stephen Harper broke election spending laws. Can we hear you, Pierre Poilievre, calling for Stephen Harper's being criminally charged? The RCMP should have gone, or probably they can still go. I don't know. There could be some statutory limitation to some of the cases, but they should have gone. But you never said anything. You never said a word about this thing. A case involved Peter Panashu was just made a sacrificial lamb. But the chief culprit in this, the chief violator, the criminal in this was Stephen Joseph Harper. Let's look at the case of Bruce Carson, a convicted fraudster. He was made a key advisor in Stephen Harper's Prime Minister's office. And Carson, what did he do? He lobbied for the money for new University of Calgary Eco Think Tank and left the PMO to run the same think tank. Stephen Harper literally took $15 million. Check. Here is, hey, Bruce, come and see me at 5 o'clock over a cup of coffee downtown. Oh yeah, Bruce, I brought you this check. 15 million. Stephen Harper took government money and handed it over to a convicted fraudster. He was made a key advisor. What advice was he getting from a convicted criminal? And yet you claim to be running on a tough on crime agenda. You mean tough on a crime of someone who is not in your political party? Is that what you mean? Or probably someone who looks different than you? Or someone who doesn't believe in what you believe? Tough on which crime? This is the convicted criminal. When I went to work for one of the major banks here, we had to answer questions like, have you ever had contact with the police in the last 5 years? And then I asked the person who was sitting next when I was filling that form, who was already employed. He ended up like being my boss when I was hired there. The question was, have you ever had contact with the police in the last 5 years, apart from a minor traffic violation? I asked, what does this question mean? He says, simply means if ever somebody called cops on you in the last 5 years. If ever somebody called police on you in the last 5 years. Which means if you had someone calling cops on you in the last 5 years, probably you couldn't work for them, let alone being convicted of a criminal offense. But now the PMO, the highest office, the Prime Minister's office, was hiring a convicted criminal. With that bank, we had already answered the question like, have you ever been convicted of any criminal offense? And then, no. And then in the next question was, in the last 5 years, have you ever had any contact with the police apart from minor traffic violation? And I'm like, what does this question really looking for? They are simply asking whether someone have ever called cops on you in the last 5 years. And then if you say yes, do you have to explain? There was a space where you explain the circumstances. And maybe if they are not satisfied with your answer, then probably that could discriminate you from getting employment with that particular bank. Now, in this case, we were having the highest office of the land hiring a criminal who ended up lobbying for the eco think tank fraudulently and was given 15 million by Joseph Harper. 15 million taxpayers' money. Shame on you, conservatives. You are a bunch of criminals. The bottom line, Poilievre wants to implement selective enforcement of the law. That is, he wants to punish political opponents and protect friends and allies. Pierre is trying to emulate Donald Trump in weaponizing the justice system. Pierre wants to use the justice system to attack and weaken political rivals or those perceived as. Mr. Poilievre wants to see those mandated to maintain law and order abdicate their responsibility, bowing to political trends. This pattern erodes credibility of the law enforcement. For democracy to survive, those in the enforcement must be independent, biased, executing the law equally and equitably, deciding cases based on their merits without a view to political affiliation or position. Only then can we maintain public trust in the law enforcement community. We thank you for watching this video. We ask that you comment, you share, you like. When I hear your views, Pierre is out of control.